Hey, welcome back to Imago Spiritual Learning and Wellness. In continuing with the topic of the when your belief system breaks down and you're going through spiritual crisis, especially if you're over the age of 40. Um, but in continuing with this topic, I came across something that I read the other night and wanted to share it here because it really is in keeping with what I've been talking about in terms of the spiritual crisis that we're undergoing or that we may undergo, and then um, however that crisis with all of its pain and fear and loss and everything that may accompany that experience emotionally and mentally in terms of anguish and all that, that it's also an invitation. If we can see the bigger picture, it's also an invitation, and it's a prelude to a new birth, a, a new possibility, a new way of being, a new way of seeing, and a new way of operating in the earth, um, in the world, in our lives. So, so this book that I'm reading now, it's by Manly P. Hall, and it's Lectures on Ancient Philosophy. Okay, and this is an accompaniment to his um, book. It's considered his masterpiece, but I enjoy this one much more actually. Um, but his book, his first great opus, his first great piece, The Secret Teachings of All Ages, by Manly P. Hall. And The Secret Teachings of All Ages, I use it as a reference book. It's a great read, lots of information, tons of information. But this book, Lectures on Ancient Philosophy, is man, it's not only highly informative, but it pierces my soul, and it stings my personality. Um, I mean, it shines surprisingly to me because I was not expecting it at all. But especially like chapters 5 and 6. Um, I mean, it's kept me up at night because of what it points out in terms of our deficiencies in consciousness, which translates into deficiencies in our humanity and in our way of being and operating, and um, and it's kept me up at night because it really, I just feel fully exposed, completely naked, and man, it just brings me to my knees. Um, However, with that, there's also a messaging of hope if we are really apply ourselves to the work, because that's really what it takes. It's not about some deity waving a magic wand over us and completely just cleansing and purifying our personalities and our character. That's not how it works. That's not how it works at all. Um, it's really not how it works. It really is about us striving for a higher ideal of self. And anyway, so and then I wanted to share this too. So I add these little markers. Um, there's like these little stickers things, little flags, and I like these because they are thinner or narrower than the post-it flags. So they fit a little bit better in the margins. Um, they're kind of plasticky, so writing on them is, you can do it if you have the proper kind of pen, maybe like a felt tip pen as opposed to a ballpoint. It's a little bit harder with ballpoint. But I started marking my readings with those stickers because um, and I started doing this a few years ago, to stop writing notes and highlighting in books. And because, I have quite a collection of books, about 2,000 volumes in all. I have 1,300 up here in my shelves, and then about another, you know, yeah, 700 or so in storage. And so eventually, when I have a bigger place and more shelf space, they're all going to come out. And I'll keep growing my collection, because it's not only about my pursuits and what I enjoy reading. It's also a library that I can pass on to my sons when my life in this current form passes, and I move on in my life. I can leave those books behind, and my sons can inherit them, and hopefully make use of them. So I do the flags now, so that they're not marked up, which would kind of interfere with their reading of the books. Because I like buying used books, for example, and when I go to used bookstores and they're all highlighted and marked up, I don't even bother with the book. Anyway, I want to read this passage, this paragraph here from Manly P. Hall's book, which again kind of sheds some light on this process of what we go through in spiritual crisis, spiritual and personal crisis. All right. And this is from page 131, from it's chapter 6, I believe, the disciplines of salvation. The disciplines of salvation. All right, and in it, here's how it reads. Observation may be considered, and he makes this distinction. It's from was it Plato or Pythagoras? Because he deals with both. Pythagoras. He deals with both philosophers in this chapter. So, and it's just a system of thought making distinctions, and a system of mental perception, which can build mental acuity, and if applied, really thoroughly, can really lead to a kind of character growth that eventually can really bear some rich and awesome fruits in our lives. So in this system of thought, he makes Pythagoras has a system of applying mental. Oh gosh, how did he say it? Mental. It's illustrated here. Well, the mental methods of perceiving and understanding, and so there are these different triads, these different triads of thought or ideas, and so in this one it's observation, discrimination, and concentration. Okay, and so this one is about observation as opposed to just seeing. So seeing is just on the surface of things. When we observe things, now we're discerning the underlying causes, okay, and the intentions and motives, and meanings of things. And then discrimination is about putting things in their order of value, because when we observe and we observe the oneness of things, that can be overwhelming. So then we have to discriminate and put things in their in orders of value, and properly sequenced, so that we can tackle what's primary first in terms of value, what's most important for us first, because there's no way to deal with everything of the allness of all. There's just not. It's just too big, too grand. And then concentration. So we observe, and then we discriminate, and then once we discriminate and we determine what's of primary importance, then we concentrate on that. And then when we've thoroughly treated that which is of primary importance, then we go on to the secondary, and on and on. Okay. So anyway, in this passage it reads, observation may be considered as the process of seeing with the mind rather than with the eye. It involves an analysis of the object beheld and the effort to sense or conceive its intrinsic nature. The end of observation, the goal of observation, right? The end of observation is the ability to cognize, to know the life behind the form, the fact behind the fancy, the truth behind the symbol, and the self behind the not self. The self, capital S, versus the not self. That's the little identity that we tend to think that we are, the not self. That's the illusion. It's the untruth, where the self, capital S, the universal self, the singular self, the unitary self, the oneness self, that's the truth. That's the reality. Anyway, through observation, one is able to discover wisdom in the words of fools and foolishness in the words of the most wise men. Observation, furthermore, is the ability to comprehend the pervading wholeness. He who sees may see the parts, but he who observes closely may glimpse the divine cement that binds the fractions together. I'm going to read that statement one more time. He who sees may see the parts, but he who observes closely may glimpse the divine cement that binds the fractions together. We live in a world of men who see in part and are seen in part, who think in part, hope in part, fear in part. The universe is regarded as fragmentary or partitive because we lack the faculty of seeing the wholeness, the oneness, the unity, the wholeness of things. Observation is that transcendent faculty which is able to grasp the wholeness of things, in its span of comprehension, whereas ordinary sight is simply the ability to analyze the fragments. Thus, sight differs from observation as widely as analysis differs from synthesis. And I had to mark that in green as distinguished from the purple because that one really kind of hit home. And so that speaks to, this whole, what we've been speaking about, personal and spiritual crisis when everything falls apart. If we remain focused only on the happenings in the moment and the pain and the loss and the abandonment and the fear and the anxiety and the stress, then and if that's all that we come to perceive in our personal experience of our personal and spiritual crisis, then we might lose out on seeing the bigger picture, because the bigger picture, again, is that we're being invited to something grand and beautiful, a new birth, a rebirth of ourselves. It's just like with the transformation of the caterpillar to the butterfly, right? Or the destruction of the seed that then germinates and becomes the sprout, and then it goes on to grow into a plant or a tree. If all we focus on is the destruction, just like in our current world today, it's falling apart. But there's something bigger and grander and majestic, possibly, it's up to us, that is emerging or that can emerge. And if we're going to be a part of that, we have to enlarge our vision to see the oneness, the wholeness, the unity in everything. So that if we focus only on the destruction of the body of the caterpillar, well, then we lament, we grieve the death and destruction of this form. But if we see the bigger picture, and we see the transformation, the metamorphosis, that's really the process that it's undergoing, then we, as the body of the caterpillar is destroyed, what do we keep envisioned in our mind? The butterfly to come, right? So we don't just focus on the destruction of the seed, we focus on what is to emerge from that destruction, which is new growth. We're not going to just focus on the destruction and collapse of society and of modernity. What we're going to keep envisioned in our minds and really hold to it, creatively imagining it, is the possibility of a new birth, a new society, a new world, a real new world, not this new world order nonsense that the powers that be, and they have no power, and they're not powerful at all. That's not power. But the powers that be, quote unquote, they're aiming for this great reset and to remake and remold society according to their vision, which is all ego based and is all based on separation, right? And so, what we're focused on, what we keep in mind, and what we must also enact and embody, embrace and embody and express in our own personal lives, is the world of oneness to emerge from this world of separation. So we can stay in analysis and kind of break apart, all the different parts and all that. But if all we remain, if the only process we apply is analysis, we only see the parts, we only see the fragments. That's all that we can see, because that's the nature of analysis, is to break things down, right? But however, if we come to see the synthesis of things, the coming together of things, how everything comes together, how death leads to life, how destruction leads to creation, how old things dying lead to new things being born. If we hold to that synthesis, then we will see the real truth of what's happening. And in the personal crisis and spiritual crisis that you might be undergoing, just hold to that vision that something is emerging, and then something beautiful, something spectacularly beautiful, a new possibility in terms of a way of being and operating. And when that happens, then we're synthesizing everything, and then we see the pain and the loss as invitation. And that's what, and if we're going through that suffering, man, give thanks. Give thanks, because you're undergoing a process of metamorphosis, of transformation, that, and it's an invitation to something great. I mean, if your life is great and all circumstances and conditions of your life are absolutely spectacularly awesome, and everything's put together just perfectly, good for you. Blessings, blessings, blessings. It's all good. It's all good. It's all part of the unity, because then you can serve perhaps a different role, a different purpose, right, in this emerging oneness. However, if you find that your life is falling apart or has fallen apart, and everything that you came to know is no longer, intact, and everything that you've come to trust in is, and there's no support there anymore, then really give thanks, because the role that you're going to be playing, not just in gaining agency in your own life, but gaining agency in this world, in order to play an active part in the rebirthing of our world, man, that part that you are invited to play is something, it's awesome. So take your pain and your suffering as an honor. It's a place of honor that you occupy. It's a place of privilege that you occupy. But you have to see the synthesis. You have to see the wholeness, as Brother Hall puts it, the oneness, okay, the unity. That's what it's all about. So just wanted to leave you with that. Thank you so much for taking this time with me here at Imago Spiritual Learning and Wellness. Give a like, subscribe, and many blessings, eternal blessings to you and to all that pertains to you. Thank you so much. Stay blessed. Where's my mouse? All right, we're going to do this here. Bye.